I saw reports that there were 400 kilograms, 800 pounds that they moved, but I wonder if it's traceable. I mean, if they were to have moved,
they didn't move anything.
They didn't move anything.
You know what they moved themselves? They were all trying to live. They didn't move anything. They didn't think it was going to be actually doable what we did, and what we did was amazing. And we went. There were energy commissions that went there now. No, it's just thousands of tons of rock in that room right now. That room, the whole place was just destroyed. And the other two also. Now, Israel was able to do damage, but we did the final damage. And we have the greatest submarines in the world. We launched 30 rockets from submarines. Every single one of them hit their target.
Hello and welcome. I'm Brandon Weichert, filling in for Emerald Robinson, and this is The Absolute Truth on Lindell TV. You just heard President Donald Trump talking again about the what he says was a totally successful U.S. airstrike conducted by multiple B-2 Spirit long-range stealth bombers last weekend, directed at Iran's Fordow nuclear enrichment facility, as well as Iran's Natanz facility. We dropped 14 total GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator bombs, bunker busters, 30,000-pound bombs. And then, as President Trump just said, we popped off 30 Tomahawk cruise missiles from U.S. Guided missile submarines off the coast of Iran at Isfahan, another nuclear weapons facility. The war over the war, though, continues because the corporate media continues arguing that, in fact, the airstrikes conducted by Trump administration last week were not as effective. And as you can see from these satellite photos that are being displayed that were released by the U.S. Department of Defense, looks like there's a lot of hole in the ground and looks like the thing got hit pretty bad. But both the corporate media as well as the Iranian regime are saying absolutely not. This is not as effective as we're letting on. So we're now going to be joined by former Colonel Rob Maness of the U.S. Air Force. He's the host of the Rob Maness Show, a very popular podcast. And we were hearing before the break that he may have wrestled a gator at one point when he was running for the Senate back in 2013 in Louisiana. Colonel, it's great to have you here. Let's just let's get down into it. The media says strike not so great. Trump says totally obliterated. What say you?
Well, the media is basing their reporting on what's called a restrike report, Brandon, and that is the initial 24 hours or less report to the military planners to see if the decision needs to be raised up to the leadership on whether to restrike the targets or not. Now, it's very apparent, and Donald Trump said this in his announcement comments the night of the attack, that we have more targets and we're ready to strike them, and it'll be even more devastating than this one was. So all of that lines up to me and based on what the second briefing from General Kane and Secretary Hegseth did just a couple of days ago, and now that we have some more insight into how they did the targeting on Fordow especially, I'm inclined to go with the president and his guys. Look, they put 12 of these 30,000-pound bunker busters down into that facility, and the way they targeted it, they removed the extra concrete that the Iranians had been seen pouring on top of the entry and exit and ventilation shafts to try to prevent these bunker busters from penetrating. And quite frankly, those bunker busters, 12 of them, think about that, 12 30,000-pound bunker busters went down into that facility, detonated as they were designed to detonate. And that facility down below, it's flat, and there are layers of quartzite granite over that facility. That's what made the targeting solution so interesting, because the penetrator doesn't do as well against granite as it does against regular rock and concrete, those kind of things. So the way this target was attacked and the debriefings that I've seen so far, I'd say that facility is destroyed. If there was anything in it, it's not going to be usable at all. And we'll have to wait and see.
And I should just let you know, I mean, as you know, I do a lot of consulting with the Defense Department. I know a bunch of retired Lockheed guys. One of the defense contractors retired that I know down here in Florida, he had said before the strike, he was concerned about the fusing mechanism on the penetrator, not because what you just said, the granite, it wouldn't work properly, but it does look like it did, in fact, explode as, as projected. So that is a major win, and something that and you feel free to comment on this. Something that I keep telling people is whether it was totally destroyed, obliterated, as the president says, or if it was significantly degraded. The Israelis are saying systemic damage. That's a win for Team America. We have degraded the capability. The question I have for you is, when do you think the Iranians could reconstitute their nuclear weapons capability? And do you think they're able to do that at all?
Well, DNI Tulsi Gabbard had the best comments on that subject. She said, look, the three facilities that we hit, Isfahan, Natanz, and Fordow, are the three keystone facilities of their nuclear weapons development program, and they would all have to be rebuilt completely in order to even start reconstituting their weapons development. So you're talking years and years and years down the road. And we haven't even started talking about if the highly enriched uranium was still down there, as the president has said his intelligence indicated. And I don't have anything I could rebut that with, to be honest with you. Then that stuff is lost. It's completely lost, because it will take them years and years and years to get down to it. Some of those facilities are said to be 800 or 900 meters deep. That's a half a mile. So it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to excavate it. There are indications of open source satellite imagery that shows they are in excavation mode already, at least on Fordow. But like I said, and like Gabbard said, years and years and years, they have to totally rebuild those three facilities in order to even start looking at getting centrifuges and mining and materials and start to work again.
So just to be clear, we saw last week or last Friday, there was quite a spat between Secretary of Defense Hegseth and his former colleague, Jennifer Griffin, the Fox News Pentagon reporter, when she brought up the possibility that there were these trucks that appeared 48 hours before we struck Fordow and Natanz, for example. And the concern was that perhaps the Iranians were moving more than just personnel, that they might have been moving the highly enriched uranium, HEU, out of these facilities. You don't buy that. You don't think that they were able to do that, or what's your take on that?
They would have had to have had a lot more trucks than what we saw in the imagery, and it appears that those trucks may have been pouring that special concrete the Iranians have had their universities trying to develop to cover those caps that Secretary Hegseth and General Kane said we knocked off, and then sent the rest of the penetrators down into the facility. And let's talk about the fusing for a second.
Yeah.
The fusing is new. It's called a void fuse. So the weapons need to get all the way down into the facility. So they do what's called a double tap. So they use two to knock the caps off that were covered, and then one to penetrate down through the rest of it to start a hole, and then the rest just followed that one in two different locations. So that's what the interesting part of the targeting solution was to defeat the potential granite there. And you can never be 100% sure where the granite is, what level it's at, and those kind of things. So you have to do that. And we always over bomb, always. So we put a little extra on. And when I say we, I'm talking about the commanders and the targeteers and the weapons officers. We always put a little extra on when we're going after a target like that. And just to make sure, I'm convinced that the reporting on the side of the government appears to be 100% true at this point. And there hasn't been any detection of any radioactive plumes and those kind of things, which leads me to believe that facility at Fordow, especially where the 400 kilograms were suspected to be, was completely flattened with very little leakage.
Very
little
interesting.
leakage.
So if we could, guys, if we could play clip number 6, it's a 13-second clip of the president answering the question of restrike. Can we play that real quick?
If the intelligence reports conclude that Iran can enrich uranium to a level that concerns you, would you consider bombing the country again?
Without question, absolutely.
And have you had any?
So that's the president, I believe, on Thursday or Friday of last week, answering the question of, hey, if they do restart the program, we'll hit them again. But if we can just pull up clip number 7, it's an article I wrote over the weekend. We had 20 GBU-57s to begin with. We launched 14. Simple arithmetic would tell us there are only 6 left in our arsenal. Colonel, is that enough if we have to go in again? Are those enough of the 30,000-pound bombs, or are we going to have to do something else here?
Well, we have manufacturing capabilities, and never sell the manufacturing capability of the United States of America short. I think a lot of our enemies and potential adversaries have been lulled into this false sense of security because of the internal debate about reestablishing our manufacturing capabilities. Well, we already manufactured these once. We spent 15 or 16 years designing them for the Fort Howe facility, quite frankly. So those capabilities are here. I'm sure they're being worked on right now to produce even more of them in case we need them. And the Iranians would do well to think twice about restarting this program. Especially while Donald Trump is president, or any other follow-on American president, because he's now set the precedent finally after the last how many years of presidents of the United States saying the famous quote, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. So now the follow-on folks will have a little bit of steel in their spine thanks to President Trump.
So it might be we're not getting tired of winning just yet. I hope that's the case. Let's, in the last minute or so, let's talk about China. Our friend Greg Copley, who's a very renowned geopolitical analyst, broke the story. The New York Post has been running with it. Looks like there's a bit of a power struggle going on behind the scenes in the Chinese Communist Party. Xi Jinping, the current president, is on the outs, it looks like, and it might be a kind of a triumvirate of CCP leaders belonging to the Shanghai faction, a reformist faction, might have the upper hand. What do you know about this, and what do you think this means for the United States, if it's true?
Of course, I only know what probably what you know, the open source communications about it. But here's the big indicator that there's some credibility behind this, and that is the lack of action by China in support of their protectorate, Iran, in this war, which also leads me to say that I think the president made the right call when he said, no regime change. We're not getting into this. The war's over. It's a 12-day war. That's what we're going to call it. The war is finished. It's time for Iran to come on into the trade market. They're really good traders and get on with it. And Xi is in backpedal mode, trying to strengthen his position. And that's why the announcement was made by President Trump about China being able to buy oil and gas from Iran now. Those two issues is what he's trying to do. Encourage the Iranians to stop being stupid and help shore up Xi, who he thinks is an ally internally for his purposes when it comes to trade and foreign policy, while at the same time, we're building and facing towards the Pacific to make sure that Xi or any other follow-on dictator in the Chinese Communist Party doesn't feel like they want to start a war and go kinetic against the United States.
Well, this has all been very, very informative. Thank you so much, Colonel Maness. I think that the China story is only going to get bigger the closer we get to the People's Congress, I think, which is in the fall of this year. So we will keep an eye on, and we will definitely have you back with Emerald to talk about this. Thank you so much, and let's keep winning, I guess. And don't take the black pill just yet, as the kids would say. Hope is still springing eternal. And we'll see you all after this break. Don't go away. You won't want to miss. We've got a great segment coming up on the remittance taxes in the big, beautiful bill.
Swollen limbs, joint pain, inflammation, skin aging, and cognitive decline. These are just a few of the awful side effects that you can experience due to poor blood circulation. And popping ibuprofen is not a solution to the pain. It's only temporary relief, and it's only masking the true problem, which is inflammation. Researchers are saying to add this Antarctic super nutrient to your diet. I'm talking about omega-3 fatty acids, but not just any form of omegas. These particular omega-3 fatty acids are sourced from wild-caught krill. Has been shown to support healthy blood pressure, circulation, brain health, as well as reduce inflammation, swelling, and joint pain. For a limited time, you can grab Native Path Antarctic Krill Oil for up to 66% off plus free shipping. Just go to getkrill.com/Lindell right now to get your special offer.
Now we're moving on to the domestic front, which in many respects is the more important front. No longer talking about war. It looks like the big, beautiful bill is moving through our labyrinthine Congress. The Senate has voted 51-49 to pass their version of the big, beautiful bill. But there's some poison pills, it seems like, within the BBB and the Senate side. As you can see here, our next guest is going to be talking about this. U.S. has slashed the remittance tax for non-resident immigrants from 3.5% to 1%. If you remember, one of the biggest issues in the last decade or so has been the issue of immigrants, illegals as well, all immigrants sending money back to their home countries. They work here, they send their money back for their family in their home country. We don't really tax it. It's something, it's over $800 billion is one figure that was bandied about from 2023. $800 billion a year is sent out of the United States, minimally taxed, going to these foreign countries. If we pull up clip number 2, it's very interesting here. You'll see that actually one of the biggest beneficiaries is not actually Mexico, it's India through legal immigration. And it looks like the Indians actually tax remittances coming in, coming out of their country. They tax at 20%. We're not really taxing our remittances going out of the United States at all. This is an unfair balance. This is an unfair deal. If you pull up clip number 3, you can see the chart here. Remittances are a very important deal. So why, pray tell, is the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, in the United States Senate, why is he gutting what is a signature component of President Trump's bill, which is we want to make money off of the immigrants who are here? Why not? Other countries do it. Why are we cutting those remittance taxes down? Joining us now, our next guest is Kevin Lynn, and he's here joining us to talk about this and the big, beautiful bill. Maybe it's not so beautiful. I don't know. It's great to meet you, Kevin. Thanks for coming on and talking about this.
Brandon, real pleasure to be here today with you. Always a pleasure to be on the show. Yes, why? Thune is particularly concerning here because in 2009, I believe it was, the state of Oklahoma actually did pass a remittance tax of $5 for transactions under $500 and 1% for over $500. And that's led to roughly $13 million a year rolling into the state's coffers. Now, you really got to give a shout out and a round of applause to Congressman Andy Biggs, because he was the one who pushed this issue in the House bill. And he started at 5%. And that got whittled down to 3.5% before it made its journey over to the Senate. And now it's at 1%. And the reason why this is a big deal, Brandon, is, you know, economists on a macro scale love to talk about the velocity of money and transactions and how important it is. Well, for every dollar, let's say let's say you wanted to stimulate the economy, for every dollar that you put into the economy, roughly $1.50 to $3 ends up being cycled around the economy. The velocity of money increases. It's a net plus. The problem is when you take the money out of the system, the way remittances do. And right now, the top 3 countries that receive remittances from immigrants here in the U.S. are number 1, Mexico. It's about estimated 2024, we're still pulling together the 2024 stats, but 60 to 64 billion dollars leaves our economy and goes to Mexico. And you had mentioned India, and with good reason. It's estimated that last year, anywhere from 25 to 32 billion dollars left the shores of this country and went directly to India. Now, I love the fact that you brought up the fact that India taxes remittances. Now, several years ago, it was de minimis, the amount that they taxed, but they recently upped it to 20%. Why? Because that's a huge economic driver. In total, from all over the world, India receives anywhere from 129 to 132 billion dollars a year in remittances. It's what's propping up the Modi regime at this point. It's just amazing. And again, the problem here in the United States is this money is being directly taken out of the economy, and it's not being allowed to recycle in our economy.
Yeah, and I'm a former congressional staffer, and so I remember the budgets and having to do that every year. And and I still have contacts over on both sides in the House and the Senate. And I thought it was interesting. I received an email this weekend about this very issue, and they had told me, this individual, that actually it was the Indians. There were a bunch of lobbying groups representing Indian interests who put a lot of pressure on particularly the Senate Republicans to get this lowered. Because of what you just said, it's going to harm the Indian economy. So for all of my friends who are conspiracy theorists, you talk about the Israeli lobby. Let's talk about the Indian lobby, because in my opinion, this is a big problem, is that we've got a foreign government basically pressuring the Senate Republicans to kind of gut what is a signature part of Trump's bill, which is to make everything fair with the rest of the world. And right now it's not fair. Let me ask you this. If we had a different Senate majority leader other than John Thune, who's really a Mitch McConnell clone, do you believe this would be going the same way it is? Do you think we'd actually be able to stand up, or are they all just as bad on the Senate Republican side?
There are a number of what I would call bad players on the Senate Republican side. I couldn't tell you, they didn't do a roll call, so I couldn't tell you specifically which senators push this notion of lowering the remittance tax amount rate, but it's more than likely the usual suspects. And the problem is, as you had mentioned, there are very, very strong Indian lobbying efforts at foot right now. You have players like NASSCOM. You have Silicon Valley. Because what it does is, if they can keep the remittance rate low, it encourages more migration here to the U.S. because ultimately it makes it more profitable. It allows them to send more money back to their families, which is a big impetus. Let's talk about India, for instance. Every year, India graduates roughly 1 million engineers, half of whom they cannot employ. And a lot of it is they're simply incompetent. So what do? They have to send them overseas. And this diaspora really has two benefits for India. And let's talk about that. I'm going to read a quote, and this was an article in The Economist, and it was titled, "Narendra Modi's Secret Weapon, India's Diaspora." And it says, and I quote, "Mr. Modi and his BJP are acutely aware of this. Their election manifesto in 2014 called the diaspora a vast reservoir of articulate and national interests and affairs globally that would be harnessed for strengthening brand India." The next year, the party's general secretary said the BJP saw the diaspora as India's voice abroad. To quote, again, "the way the Jewish community looks out for Israel's interests in the United States," unquote. So that's what we're dealing with at this point, Brandon. A very, very strong foreign lobbying effort that actually harms Americans. Our group, U.S. Tech Workers, that we founded back in 2018, has really spent a lot of time and effort, not just discussing and pointing out how this is hurting workers, but we actually have been pushing back. For instance, in August 2020, during the first Trump administration, President Trump weighed in and saved 200 Tennessee Valley Authority union jobs from being outsourced to Indian H-1B visa dependent companies. And this was a big deal. Unfortunately, many of the reforms that the president instituted in the last 6 months of his presidency, his first term, weren't allowed to come to fruition under the Biden administration. So we're pretty much back to square one there. But if there is a solution, Brandon, it's this. Everyone right now, call your senators, get on the phone, talk to them, tell them how this bill, how having a remittance tax in this piece of legislation will help their communities. It'll allow their communities to have more money at the state, local, and federal levels, and also help reduce their state, local, and federal deficits. Also, we have primaries coming up. It's time to get candidates that are truly putting Americans first, and they are out there. And we're seeing now some of the what would you call them? Rhinos, folks like Tillis, Cornyn. Tillis announced he wasn't going to run for another term. And that's coming up shortly. Cornyn is facing a significant challenge by Paxton in Texas. Andy Biggs, God bless him again for pushing this in the House, but he's going to run off and become governor of Arizona.
Yeah.
So we got to get to work on this.
We do, and I really appreciate you highlighting this. This is a story I've been tracking for over a decade, the remittance issue. It really is an America First policy initiative. We need to stay on this. And the president, I hope he'll see this segment. I know he watches us. I hope the president realizes that Kevin Lynn has got it right. And we need to start really getting tough on the rest of the world, even our friends, and the Indians are our friends geopolitically, but we cannot be the world's suckers anymore. And the remittances are the biggest issue, one of the biggest issues that makes us a sucker. So thank you so much, Kevin, for coming on. And our next guest is in the queue. We're going to be talking about the internal dynamics of Iran. Is regime change coming? We'll find out more. Don't tune away. I'm Brandon Weichert, filling in for Emerald Robinson. Thank you.
Huge breaking news. Mike Lindell Media Corporation, which includes Lindell TV, has gone public with the stock trading symbol MLMC.
Kara Cashinova from Lindell TV.
This is Allison Steinberg here with Lindell TV. We are currently on LindellTV.com.
The platform, which has rapidly grown to attract 7.2 million monthly viewers and 150 million annual impressions. Vocalist's subsidiary social media network supports over 70,000 accounts, and MLMC is poised for even greater success.
This is going to be big, everybody, and I'm really looking forward to it.
My fellow compatriots, our beloved Iran has been dragged into a devastating conflict, the architect of which is none other than Ali Khamenei and his corrupt, destructive faction. He has driven our nation's economy to the brink of collapse, plundered our national infrastructure and resources, squandered the nation's wealth on developing nuclear weapons, shattered Iran's security, and stolen the sovereignty of the Iranian people.
That was the adult son of the deposed Shah of Iran, Reza Pahlavi. He's a permanent resident these days of Washington, D.C., and it looks a lot like he is angling hard to be the successor to the Islamic Republic of Iran. Regime change, therefore, is in the air. And the question is, how on board are we in the United States with this mission? Just over the weekend, the Supreme Ayatollah, who is sort of one of the leading religious figures of Iran, in Qom, that's their holiest cities. This is not the Ayatollah Khamenei, who is the head of government. This is one of his colleagues, who is a very respected teacher, if you will, in the Shiite faith. He issued this directive here. It's in Farsi, but it says basically it's okay to kill Trump. They're coming at Trump because of the way that the president of the United States initiated that airstrike last weekend that we spent the first segment in this show talking about with Colonel Manus. If you can flip over to clip number 3, guys, we can talk a little bit about clip number 3. And that is basic. Yeah. Yep. Let's get the regime change shot, please, guys. Netanyahu.
I speak a lot about the leaders of Iran. Yet at this pivotal moment, I want to address you, the people of Iran. I want to do so directly, without filters, without middlemen. Every day, you see a regime that subjugates you make fiery speeches about defending Lebanon, defending Gaza. Yet every day, that regime plunges our region deeper into darkness and deeper into war.
So let's run through this. We've got the former Shah's son, who's the crown prince, the heir apparent of the monarchy, clearly angling for returning to Iran. We've got the head of the religious order in Iran saying not only death to America, but issuing a fatwa saying, go kill Trump, my followers, at all costs. And now you've got, for several months now, going back to last August, which is when that clip is from, the Israeli Prime Minister, Netanyahu, calling for regime change in Iran, saying that the Islamic Republic doesn't represent the people of Iran. That's probably true, 92 million people. Barak Ravid of the Axios publication that you just saw there talked also openly throughout the last 12-day war between Israel and Iran of the unstated goal being regime change. Now, President Trump made it clear, even when he intervened last weekend with those bombs, he will hit the nuclear sites and he'll reserve the right to restrike those sites, but he doesn't support regime change. So what's going on? Is this just idle chit-chat on the part of angry world leaders, or is there a real plan to try to oust the current regime of Iran and replace it with the Shah's son or someone else? I'm joined now by my friend Payman Askari. He is the host of a very popular Canadian podcast, In Lay Terms. It's great to have you, Payman. Thank you so much for joining us. So Payman is also, he has a lot of connections to Iran. He is from Iran. And so he's going to tell us what exactly the situation domestically, we don't really get the inside scoop, really. What is going on inside of Iran? And is the prospect of regime change, is this a real thing, or is this just sort of, hopium, as the kids would say, for regime change on the part of Netanyahu?
First of all, Brandon, thank you very much for having me on. It's an honor to finally be on Lindell TV. Yes. For disclaimer for the audience, I'm just an ordinary guy, so I'm not claiming to be the supreme expert on Iran. But here is what I see, just from my observations over the last few weeks, and obviously being an Iranian myself. Domestically in Iran, there's two groups of people. You have the ruling class, so the people that are in government, that survive off of government, that work for government. They don't support regime change for personal reasons. And then you have what we could call like the working class, the middle class, the tax base that's funding this imperial ambition of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And they don't want to have anything to do with that regime. When I was in Iran 10 years ago now, my cousin, he said to me, he's like, Payman, please tell President Trump to just drop a bomb somewhere in Iran, anywhere, to scare this government, to topple the government. So the working class, the rank and file people, they're all on board on regime change. Then when you come out internationally, outside Iranians that are living outside of Iran, you have two different groups of people. You have people who they never really relinquish their ties to Iran. They have a kinship with the land, and they sort of have a foot in their new country and in their home country. And they wholeheartedly support this regime change because they see their loved ones suffering under the inflation caused by this Islamic Republic. And the reason they call it a regime is they see it as an outside force that's come in and conquered their country. Sort of like how the Soviet Union, you could say, conquered Russia, or how China right now is suppressing the different groups of people living in China, communist China is. And then there's another group, which I fall into, is the people that came here. We made the decision to assimilate fully, and we don't really have much to do with Iran anymore. And we kind of look at it a little bit more objectively. Like, I'm in Canada right now. So how does regime change in Iran benefit Canada? What are the benefits? Not really that much. My Iranian friends in Iran aren't going to like me saying this, but what are the risks? Well, if we cause another humanitarian crisis, you might get 1 million Iranian refugees coming to Canada. So that's my sort of breakdown of what's going on.
So, and there's also the issue of having worked in national security throughout my career. The Middle East has a funny way of hitting you when you least expect it. Right? We went into Iraq, we toppled Saddam, we did the regime change in a record time, but ultimately they got regime change, but it wasn't the democracy we wanted. And it looks like that is always a possibility here. As the Bloomberg piece I had pulled up, here we go. This isn't the Iranian regime change you're looking for. Nice play on Star Wars there, by the way, at Bloomberg. The claim is that during the war, an Iranian shura was created, a war council, if you will, of all the surviving Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps commanders. Remember, the Israelis had gone in and killed a bunch at the beginning of the war. They eventually were able to pull new leaders, younger leaders from the IRGC, elevated them. Khamenei basically gave them direct control while he went to a bunker. And so is it possible, Payman, that regime change has already quietly happened in Iran, but it has happened in classic Middle East fashion, not the way we thought it was going to? It's actually giving more hardliners, a military junta, basically, control. And this will likely, maybe not, I don't know, maybe you can tell us, this will make things worse, not better. What say you?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Again, I'm stressing I'm not the expert on Iranian history, but just going based on observation, I think regime change has already sort of happened. You and I talked about this last time we did a podcast together. Like the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, they basically taken over. This isn't the old supreme leader that had an iron grip on power. So now the IRGC is running it's honestly running like BlackRock in the US, where they control every industry, but they also control the levers of power in Iran. So that's already happened. Now, whether they're taking out they took out the military class, whatever, in Iran, and they replaced them, whether they're more hardline, it depends what you mean by hardline. They might be more hardline in their imperial ambitions in the region now. They're like, all right, we have Israel and we have Turkey. We want to get as many pieces on the chessboard comparative to them. So they might have military aspirations. I don't think they really have Islamic aspirations anymore. The Islamic Revolution, it came in 79, and you got these like religious fanatics they're basically interpreting their religious text, the Quran, to the letter of the text, and nothing really worked. But the way revolutions work is it's impossible to stop it once it gains momentum. But I think they've basically given up on that. And where I'll land my plane, whether it's neoliberal Obama through something like JCPOA or neoconservative Republican through like George Bush, regime change has always been the intention to bring Iran under, the Western banking system to give access to their markets and to their resources. And I just think that's inevitable at this point. The Islamic veneer has been stripped away, and I think either through the IRGC or through their oligarchs, they'll find some way to integrate them into the West.
So it looks to me like what you believe is no matter what, they're going to be absorbed into the West. Does that mean then they're not going to be as close to Russia or China, or are they going to kind of be this middle player, do you think, bouncing between the two sides?
Well, I mean, in a perfect world, from a Western perspective, they should be in our orbit. But given how our leaders have completely mismanaged everything, including the Ukraine war and this failed attack on Iran, Russia's got a lot of leverage here. So I don't want to walk back what I said, but you have this. So you have external pressure. These people are trying to parachute Pahlavi, this crown prince, in. You have Israel attacking Iran. You have sanctions. And then you have internal pressure. I think it's like 40% inflation internally. The people are upset. They're willing to take anything at this point. Like, you could put U.S. boots on the ground and you could dismantle the Iranian army. I think they'd be happy with that. On the other hand, Iran is a part of BRICS. Israel completely, they botched. It's not really Israel. This was a joint U.S.-Israeli operation. And if their intention was to bring about regime change, to bring Iran closer to the West, they failed miserably. So they have pushed it a little bit closer to Russia. I don't know what's going to happen to the Trump administration. I mean, the way they've managed this, the only way I see out of this is if you get a Democrat sort of neoliberal approach where you start dangling a whole bunch of carrots in Iran's face.
Interesting. Well, this is going to be an ongoing story, Payman, and we're going to have you back, I think, pretty frequently. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us what's really going on. We don't really get a perspective like this. And please be sure to check out his podcast, In Lay Terms. I think I'm going to be joining you in a couple days on that show, and we're looking forward to that. So thank you so much. And up next, we've got Ed Dowd talking about the economy and the big, beautiful bill. You don't want to miss this.
Friends, we all know the truth. Big Pharma and the federal bureaucracy have made a mess of healthcare in this country, and boy, that's an understatement. President Trump signed an executive order to bring prices down, and that's a great step. But we know that real change takes time. There's one pharmacy that is already stepping up. I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy. They're not waiting. They're taking action now with a summer sale that gives you the power to take control of your health. Right now, through the end of June, you get 20% off site-wide, no insurance required. Did you hear that? 20% off site-wide, no insurance required. They work with licensed doctors in all 50 states, and they ship fast straight to your door. Whether it's ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, methylene blue, antibiotics, emergency kits, or your daily prescriptions, this is a time to stock up. If you believe in medical freedom, if you're tired of waiting for someone else to fix things, do what I do. Take action. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Lindell and use promo code Lindell20, Lindell 20 for 20% off your entire order. That's allfamilypharmacy.com, Lindell. Promo code Lindell20. Let's protect our families, defend our freedom, and make America healthy again together.
Welcome back to The Absolute Truth with Emerald Robinson. I'm Brandon Weichert, filling in for Emerald this week. Well, it's made its way through the Senate despite the opposition of two notable Republican leaders, one of whom, Tom Tillis, looks like he's not going to be a factor anymore in general because of the pressure he received from President Trump. He's out. He's announced he's going to be retiring this year. The Senate voted 51-49 to advance President Trump's big, beautiful bill. Clip 2, please. If we could look at the way that the Senate has arrayed itself, it looks like there's some big, beautiful things in this bill, but there's also some poison pills. One such thing that's been going back and forth between Republicans and the Democrats. President Trump says the big beautiful bill over a decade will generate something like $4.9 trillion in revenue. And yet, if you go to clip 3, you'll see the headline, the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, says it's actually going to add $3.3 trillion to the U.S. debt because of those very popular Trump tax cuts. So what is it? Is this another example of the lying press, doing its thing? Or is there any truth to this? Is the big, beautiful bill not that beautiful? To help guide us through this this kind of confusing time, we're joined by the great Ed Dowd, who's a friend of the show, and I'm very honored to see again. We met briefly 2 years ago at CPAC when I was a speaker there. But thank you for coming on, Ed, and guiding us through this period.
Yeah, no problem. Look, my view on the big, beautiful bill is not what was promised during the campaign trail. There were talks about cuts and getting the deficit under control. The deficit, the debt ceiling is going to be raised another $5 trillion, and the idea is the deficit will shrink because there's a growth element here because of the tax cuts. That remains yet to be seen, and so it's a big gamble. Bessent and Trump have changed their tune from cutting to growing, and there's going to unfortunately be a recession in between then and now and then. That's our viewpoint. The other problem with this bill is the AI poison pill. They want to, the tech companies want 10 years of basically indemnity from lawsuits, and that's a problem. And that's currently being going back and forth in the Senate right now. So the bill hasn't been finalized yet, but it's a big gamble, and it's going to put pressure on interest rates over time. Our view on interest rates is they are going to come down because there's an economic slowdown coming. The biggest, hidden variable of the last 4 years has been the immigration wave of 20 million illegals and the what I consider illegal funding of that whole effort, washed through NGOs. That's all reversing under Trump, and that's what's been flooding the housing market, and that's all going the wrong way. So we view a housing crisis coming in the next 12 to 18 months, and it's actually needed for the middle class because home prices should go down. So, this is a big gamble. This is a big gamble, in my humble opinion.
Well, it seems like President Trump has been making some big gambles. We talked with Colonel Manus at the top of the hour about the Iranian strikes. That was a gamble. Whether it worked or not is a point of debate, but it does seem like this is sort of how things are going to be now, very uncertain. What is your opinion? Do you think it's going to be a steep recession, or do you think it's going to be a mild one that we're heading into?
Well, the good news is the private consumer isn't as leveraged as they were during the 2008 crisis. So that's good. We're not calling for this to go to systemic and cause a banking crisis. So we have 3 scenarios: mild, normal recession, then deep. We think the deep one has a chance of clicking if the deportations are too fast, which we think is going to happen. But we don't think it's going to go systemic. We're more biased towards the deep recession, which is actually quite needed. It'll take home prices down quite a bit, and affordability will rise. The biggest problem right now is mortgage rates are too high, and we have a whole bunch of supply coming onto the market that's not going to be absorbed. And with the closing down of the border, the marginal renter was the illegal, and that's going the wrong way. New tenant rents have been coming down the last 2 quarters. New permitting for single-family homes peaked several years ago, like the 2007, 8, 9 crisis. It peaked in 2006. So we see all the indicators of a housing market that's struggling, and real home prices are already struggling. We think, when I say real, that's versus inflation. We think nominal home prices will start to come down fairly soon. They're already starting in certain sectors. And so people need to understand. Sorry, people need to understand.
No, go ahead.
Housing is a huge part of the consumption economy. Yeah. It's 20%. It's 25% of the consumption economy, which is 70% of GDP. It's 20% of the overall economy, And when that goes, that's going to take a lot of the economy down. And we're going to see new construction starts are rolling over. We're going to see probably a cessation of that. So we're going to see some knock-on effects and feedback loops from layoffs there.
And just so the audience knows, the National Association of Realtors, in their most recent newsletter, they calculated that there's been a 10-year shortage of supply on the housing market by about 5.5 million homes. We're about short, I think, 5.5 or 5.6 million homes. So that should give you all an understanding of some of the issues that we're going through in the housing market. So could be a deep recession, not necessarily, though, a bad thing if it resets some of the table for the middle class. That kind of scares people, though, when they hear deep recession. But my next question, relatedly, is with the Trump tariffs. The president was at the White House press conference about a few days ago, and he said this. If you could roll clip number 4, please, about the tariffs.
Mr. President, what is your message to critics who think your tariff plan will cause a recession?
I think they should go back to business school. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. I mean, we're taking in billions and billions of dollars from China and a lot of other countries. We took in, I had a call from somebody in the House and a high official. Sir, we have a problem. We don't know what to do. The books are a mess. I said, what do you mean by the books? The books, the money coming in. It's so terrible. I figured, oh boy, what's this? I don't like this question. I said, so what seems, there's so much money coming in, and there must be some kind of an accounting mistake because we have hundreds of billions of dollars more money than we thought. I said, do me a favor, go check call me back. You have to call me back. Check the tariff column. He calls me back 2 hours later, says, you're right. We took in $88 billion in tariffs.
Now, I used to teach economics once upon a time. I was always, tariffs can be good. If they're used right, they can be bad. It looks like Trump is taking a victory lap on this. $88 billion, though, that's good. That's not a lot of money when you consider the deficits we're running and the debt we have. Do you think that President Trump is actually going to prove everybody wrong about the tariffs, or do you think that this is not really that impressive? This maybe isn't going to lead to what he thinks.
Well, tariffs, it's a long-term play. And we need to realign the trade imbalances and the non-tariff barriers, which are a big problem. So long-term, his heart's in the right place. The execution of it is another thing. The problem with tariffs is they are a tax and they're deflationary. The Fed is saying they're inflationary. A lot of pundits are saying they're inflationary, but they're deflationary. So it's certainly not. I don't think it could alone they cause a recession. I think the demographic reversal of the incoming illegal aliens is the biggest factor. It's certainly not going to help. It's going to cause a margin squeeze on corporations, which will then lay off people, but it won't be the cause of the recession. Long term, a net good thing, but there's some short term pain in between.
So we are looking at really a remaking of the world economic order. It's obvious that President Trump is willing to embrace some short-term pain. You're saying we could potentially be entering a deep recession. What does it look like on the other side of this? Why don't you walk me through some of the scenarios? I mean, is this going to rehabilitate, you think, the American economy, or is this going to just kind of make everything worse and kind of exacerbate America's decline that we've been trying to arrest for several years now?
Short-term pain is not necessarily a bad thing. Asset prices come down, the middle class can participate. The tax cuts are probably needed for the middle class to continue the extension of those. And deregulation is a big part of the solution, which they've talked about. So long-term, and then, of course, over time, using the tariffs to get more investment into the country, where they, corporations break ground here for manufacturing jobs, long-term could help, but it's not going to happen overnight. So, because of the policies of the Biden administration, they really teed up the Trump administration for a problem economically. So what Trump's trying to do has long-term implications, which would be great. So I think there's hope on the other side, but you can't realign the world trade without some hiccups.
Yeah, and that is certainly something that I personally have been tracking for a while now. Now, if we can, it's related. Talk about a little bit about what's happening in China. I mentioned it with Colonel Manus. Our friend Greg Copley has been breaking the story. Really, he's been all over it. The possibility, and now the New York Post, Gregory Slayton is running with it as well. Another Greg. It looks like there's a power struggle going on inside of the Communist Party of China. Xi Jinping is very much on the outs. The rumor is that he actually might have already made a deal for his family's survival, that he will announce his resignation as president at the next People's Congress, which is this fall. And there's a sort of triumvirate of three people who are leading the move against him, representing the so-called Shanghai faction, which is more of a kind of reformist, pro-capitalist, still communist politically. Wang Yang is the head of this group. He's a former CCP official. What do you think is the likelihood that this change is underway? And if it is underway, how do you think it will impact not only Trump's trade deals with China, but also sort of the global economic outlook? Is it going to be better or is it going to be worse?
Well, we've been looking at China recently. It's getting worse there. So if the speculation and rumors are true, it's due to their economic collapse. Their bond yields are showing a deflationary environment. The tariffs don't help. So China has got an economic problem. Their demographics peaked in 2020, and they've been having an ongoing real estate crisis, which is getting worse. So we see these rumors as indication that their economy is in peril and it continues to be in peril. And when power blocks such as the Communist Party come under threat from their populace because they can't feed themselves, eventually they need to create a distraction. That distraction is war. That's why the Taiwan situation is a big deal. And I think that's going to come into play in the next year or two, as they need a distraction to rally their populace around a boogeyman to blame.
So just to be clear, you think that they will hit Taiwan? Because my read was, if this reformist group takes power, their ability to wage war will be stymied at least until 2030. You think actually the 2027, 2026 timeline the Pentagon's operating on remains viable even if this new group takes power?
Well, I don't know the inner workings of the new group. But as their economy continues to collapse, they need to create distractions. And one of the best distractions is war. And we all know that.
Yeah. Well, Ed, this has been really wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us, as always. And it's been great to meet you. Big fan of your work. Everyone should check out Finance Technologies, as well as your book on the uncertain death phenomenon, unexpected death phenomenon. And I think there's a 2023 edition out now as well, updated, sudden death from the COVID vaccine. This is all very, very important. Thank you so much, Ed. And as always, keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on. Good to see you.
Yes, sir. And that's going to wrap it up for us in this hour. Please stay tuned on Lindell TV. Keep it going all day. And we've got another show coming up at 2:30. A possible press conference is scheduled for then, but we'll stay with you. And please be sure to like and follow at Lindell TV on Twitter. Follow Emerald Robinson at Emerald Robinson on Twitter. And feel free to follow me at We the Brandon on Twitter. You'll find I've got a bit of a spicy outtakes and whatnot on what's going on in the world. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you as always tomorrow and Wednesday as well. Thank you so much.